Okay, we are back. This has dried overnight and then some. And I've zoomed in here so you can see that the isolation coat is glossy, but has not left any real residue. It's just like a glossy, almost like a varnish look to it. And all we're gonna do to finish this miniature is apply, I'm gonna zoom out one. I'm gonna apply some matte varnish. And this is just a brush on matte varnish. And like I said, the whole goal for this miniature is we wanna paint a miniature and varnish it. You can see how matte varnish is also kind of like milky. Of course, that's what makes it matte. You know, clear varnish is clear, glossy. And so we're just gonna apply this. And with matte varnish, just kind of like the isolation coat, you want to go kind of heavy. It's going to evaporate off, but it takes quite a bit of it to create the matte effect. And you can of course use multiple layers. If the first application doesn't get it where you need to go, then a second application can work. And so I'm just applying it all over, and then we're going to let it sit. And then, you know, the one downside to painting miniatures without the benefit of aerosols, sprays, is it takes longer. Like the steps take longer. So the prep takes longer. You know, the initial step of applying the base, and then the final step of waiting for the, you know, for the varnish to dry. So, and there you go. So there he is. There's a little bit of, let me just sneak some bristles in there, kind of break up these bubbles. There you go. Go on. Bubbles are an issue with varnishes, you know, regardless. That's one thing aerosols do a very good job of. They get rid of, there's no bubbles that you really have to deal with. With sprays and stuff, it's highly dependent upon that. So there is some, you know, while we are mostly gobbing things on, you do have to be mindful of that. And then another thing that can help with bubbles is let it dry just for, you know, even for like 10 minutes. And then you can rebrush it even with just a dry brush, or what works even better than that, believe it or not, is it's just a slightly moistened brush with even water. That really helps get rid of those bubbles, I have found. So there we go. That's pretty good. A brush like this, like I said, use a dedicated brush for your finishing. Just because, you know, things like varnish, things like isolation coats, these things really wreak havoc on brushes. You know, use things like brush soaps immediately afterwards, and you know, you don't have to soak them for an extended amount of time. Move the miniature around too, because it will get stuck to whatever you're painting on. You don't move it from time to time. That's how kind of varnishes and stuff work, if you've used them before. So, okay, this looks pretty decent. And then I will show you guys the final product here after I let this dry for a couple of hours. And here we go. This is the final result, okay? So this is the matte varnish dried. One layer. And you can see how it dried. Took off some of that sheen. Still, we have that old school kind of satiny look to it, but man, this thing is well protected, beautifully painted, if I may say so myself. I really like the face. I think that came together so well. I'm kind of glad I left the rock like a chunk of gold or something yellow. just the skin effect really kind of came together super nicely. It's got subtle variation in color, but so it's not all monotone, but still it's just got such a cool old school look to it. So there it is. That's the Stone Giant, a plastic miniature. And this plastic miniature, believe it or not, I think is from 1993. So we painted this miniature, we varnished this miniature, and we never used any aerosols, or we never used any airbrushing. We did not prime it, and it looks, looks really good. I'm really excited to have this done, and I hope you guys enjoyed this look at a different way to paint miniatures. This technique works super well for these kind of miniatures. Miniatures meaning that are simpler, so they don't have just like extreme detail. So they have large surface areas. This certainly has some detail, but it's not like a Vindicari assassin. I think that was the last major miniature I painted. So it just, it lets you experiment, lets you have fun. If you mess up, it's not a big deal. But I really like it, and it's just the color scheme is just so much fun. Like I said, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. All right, guys, appreciate y'all watching, and I think I'm going to do a few more no primer miniature painting videos.